Hello and welcome to the Gallant Few Rangers podcast. My name is Mason Stewart and I'll be your host for another Premier League show. With me tonight, starting with just two of us, but I think Graham may be joining a little bit later. It's Jamie Rolls. How are you, mate?
I'm absolutely fine, man. Thank you. I was kind of geared up for a brilliant podcast up until last night's games, and it kind of left me in a bad mood all day, just purely for the fact that so many goals happened, but to no avail. That just means that we might have to put up with them for one more season.
I mean, Joe, coming away from sort of the Premier League, I think it's the first weekend where we've been on and both our teams have won. So the weekend hasn't been ruined for either of us for once.
The one start I had, the one good I had a good start at the weekend, and it was Frank Lampard, the saviour. He saved Everton from relegation last season, and he saved Chelsea from relegation this season. It's not bad to have on your CV, innit?
Honestly, Frank Lampard, Jesus Christ. But Jamie, it's funny because we normally always start with the top teams. That's the way I sort of normally go with it. But you've just alluded to, I know what result ruined your day yesterday. You're talking about that emphatic Everton win, which I think both of us and Graham last week all said that we couldn't see Everton getting anything up down at Brighton yesterday, but they ended up going to beat them 5-1. They were, to be fair, they from kickoff. I don't know what Dyche's team talk was. It was
something in the water, wasn't it?
It was just every time they went forward, they looked like they were going to score. I've got to pick out Dwight McNeil. I thought he was brilliant, and Calvert-Lewin. To be fair, he looked super sharp. But I know through gritted teeth, you're going to have to praise Everton here. But, what did you make of them yesterday with a huge win?
Yeah. You're right. Nobody in their right mind would have taken Everton for a win yesterday. They really wouldn't, especially considering Brighton had just got that winner against Man United. You know, that nobody really kind of gave them edge for. Excuse me. You just anticipated that they would have done the same to Everton, if not worse. But for whatever reason, and you know, sometimes you see this in a team that they expect to win, that actually it doesn't go that way and they just never get themselves in the game. And I think for the first half, Brighton were very much that. I think they just expected to turn up. Everton wouldn't be on it as much as they would. They would wear them down and then they would just hit them. That didn't happen until like the second half. You know, I think when the second half kicked off, it was nothing but Brighton up until they had that one chance where they went, when they went to, was it 5? But hats off to them. They were outstanding. Like Doucouré with the goals. McNeil was absolutely brilliant as well. And I think, this is where the praise probably comes in. See the difference that happened when you have a solid number 9.
Yeah.
I don't rate Calvert-Lewin to the extent that I would put my money on him, but he's a number 9. He knows the role. He's not a false one like a Damian Gray or something like that. He is an actual number 9, and he led the line well, especially for that first goal. The way he spun in, ran off his player, crossed it across the box, and it was 1-0. I don't think Brighton really recovered from that. You've got to still praise Brighton, the fact that they've got themselves in this situation where they're pushing for potential European spots, but they just come up against a team that actually needed it 3 more than them yesterday. So sadly, yes, it does look as though we'll not have to put up with them for at least another season. And the only reason I'm saying that is that because you would never have given them the 3 points last night, you'll look at the fixtures and you go, they've probably got 1, maybe 2 points in the whole of those fixtures.
Yeah.
They've just beaten that by getting 3, and they're potentially going to get another couple of points in before the end of the season. So you fully anticipate that they'll be okay now, and especially as Leicester and Leeds are in free fall. We'll come on to Leicester, obviously, but yeah, I think they've got to be safe now. However, that whole Jordan Pickford punch in the air every time he had a fucking save yesterday's quite annoying. But do you know what I mean? Like, it's just a shit house, isn't it? I don't mind saying that. But yeah, hats off to Dwight McNeil. Finally turned up, had a good game. Doucouré as well. And they blew away a Brighton that nobody, and I mean nobody, expected.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think it's right to point out how good Everton were. But you're absolutely spot on. That's the worst I've seen Brighton for a long time. They were defensively where I thought they've been good this season, and they've took the game to teams. But they just got every time Everton went forward yesterday, they looked like they was going to score. And again, I will point out, probably a little bit biased, but I thought Nathan Patterson made a big difference for Everton yesterday. What I can't sort of get my head around is why it's taken him so long to get a run in the team under Sean Dyche. It took obviously Coleman to get a really bad injury, but Matoma was poor yesterday. I think Patterson played him really well, but I just find that so frustrating. He's obviously gone with experience, but I think for me, Seamus Coleman's been finished years ago.
The problem was Coleman was the captain. So to drop your captain when you're in this dogfight, captain's the person that you want on the pitch, isn't it? That's why he's your captain. So yeah, I do believe Nathan Patterson is a better defender than Coleman now, as it stands. He's now got the injury, so he will definitely play. He'll get better. What I do like about Patterson is he's strong.
Yeah,
he's, for his frame, he's a strong lad. He was arguably one of the better players yesterday. Take the goals aside, but he was never going to be ahead of Seamus Coleman in this running. Do you know what I mean? Because you're then admitting your captain's not the captain that you want. He's not good enough to be playing. Dyche is probably many things, but he's loyal. He's a true honest gent in that respect, and his captain's his captain. So he would always play his captain. Sadly, he's not going to be playing for the remainder of the season. It doesn't look like an ACL, so he's more than likely going to be coming back next season. But Nathan Patterson, he'll do well to get the minutes for the end of the season, definitely.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a fair point on Dyche. I think he is loyal, especially to the older players. But I think that'll be changed. That'll be a good one. Moving on, then another one last night, Jamie. Nottingham Forest 4, Southampton 3. Before we come on to Southampton, big win for Nottingham Forest. They've actually picked up, I think, 82% of their points in the Premier League this season has been at home. I think they've lost 2 out of 14, the last 14. So just how important it's been, for them if they do start, which I think that win yesterday again kicks them in a really, really good position. But a player I just want to pick out yesterday watching the game was Morgan Gibbs-White. I thought he was the best player on the pitch by some distance. He gave the ball away really sloppy for Southampton's first one, but I think everything was good about Forest yesterday come through him. And that touch for the 4th goal is top draw, by the way, because the amount of players that don't have
just killed it, didn't it?
Yeah, the balls to do that. They'd rather take it on or take a touch, but just that awareness, because he looks once and then the play goes on and he knows exactly where he put it. It was top draw. But what did you think of him and Forest yesterday?
Yeah, see that touch. It's such a Bobby Firmino type of touch. The way he kills it and unselfishly lets it run for somebody else. And I don't want to keep hopping back to Liverpool, but it's a proper Bobby kind of play, that is. He's arguably been one of them. So I would say, see the first half of the season, Johnson for them has been outstanding. He's run non-stop. He plays most of the games. He was getting on the end of the goals. Gibbs-White's probably been their best player in the last 2 months. Whether it's coming on and getting assists or scoring the penalties, he's just kind of found himself in a bit of form. And I think it's probably, adds into the fact that, Shelvey's been dropped recently. He had that fallout about the, not getting picked at Liverpool. And Gibbs-White's been starting every game since then. And the other lads, is it Danilo? He's been playing alongside him, and he's been playing really good as well. So they've got that form, they've got that understanding working together. Big 3 points for them. If you were saying it on paper, everybody would said this is the 3 points that they need. Southampton being bottom of the league, so the fact they've done it was always going to be an edgy game. Southampton they've shown plenty of times that they can come back in games. So it was always going to be that type of game. Big shout out, by the way, for a 1-2 second goal. It was very Drogba. See the way he chested that down and turned and just swiped it. Literally just thought of Drogba when he hit that, and I'm like, that's not seen a goal like that for in the Premier League for a while from a number 9. He did really good yesterday. Credit to Southampton for not giving up, but it shows. You look at their goals yesterday. It wasn't led by an outstanding attacking display. It wasn't like a dynamic number 9. They were just lucky to get some bad defending and rushing the box and getting shots away. The corner, for example. Whereas if you look at Forest's, it was always about feeding the number 9, feeding the attacking players and getting into it. So big 3 points for Nottingham Forest. We fully anticipated they were going to get those 3 points. It's in their hands now. That's probably what I would say.
Yeah, they put themselves in a really, really good position. But just on Southampton, then they're gone. You know, they're done. They're not getting out of this. But do you think the decision to sack Hasenhüttl was the right one? Do you think they would have been able to get out of it if they would have kept him?
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I think that's prevalent, throughout this Premier League season. I would probably simplify it and say, are they better off now than when they had Hasenhüttl? The answer is probably no. They're not better off. Now you can take the Nathan Jones saga out of it, and even the new guy, they were still probably in a better position with Hasenhüttl, and he's got a track record of getting them out of that dogfight, or he's survived a couple of times. So I wouldn't say it was the wrong decision, but I would say that they're not in a better situation because of it.
Yeah, no, hindsight is a wonderful thing. I think they was always heading that way. I think, to be honest, even if he would have stayed, but as you said, I suppose we'll never know. But we've got a third. Graham's joined us. Thanks for coming, mate. You've missed out the big relegation battle games, but I'll bring you in nicely for the Newcastle Arsenal game, which was the late one on Sunday night. But I think, again, another result we all got wrong. I think we all predicted Newcastle would come away with something from this one. But what did you make of Arsenal's performance? Some of their fans are saying it's their best away performance of the season. And to be fair, I thought they were very, very good, where I thought they'd crumble early on, but they didn't.
Yeah, first of all, apologies for my late coming. I just assumed you'd just be getting to the end of the first 20 minutes of Jamie talking about Liverpool anyway. So,
Graham, I think you've got a bit of tomato sauce on your face still, mate.
Yeah, listen, Arsenal, it was always going to be a tough one. Like, they had to get that win to keep it alive, even if a lot of people don't think it's still alive. A Man City are too good, unlikely to slip up, etc. They had to go, they had to win, and they did it. And I think the most impressive part about that performance was just how solid they looked. It wasn't like, look, Arsenal have been really entertaining all season, but to me personally, watching it just felt like a wee bit of a different performance. It just felt like a really kind of solid performance. One of those where a kind of team that go on and win a title, for example. And I think they are going to be really unlucky now. We're at that stage of the season where Man City might just be too good. But listen, it was a great performance, a great win, and I think it kind of just showed maybe just how just that wee tier below Newcastle are. Compared to where they maybe want to be next season or building forward, which, look, we all knew there's nothing wrong with that. We know Newcastle aren't at that level, but that probably gave them something to think about as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I still that gap maybe between them and the top two was showing. But Jamie, on Newcastle, then they haven't kept a clean sheet in their last 7, which was one that surprised me. You think how well they done earlier in the season with the clean sheets were racking up. But it's only I think it's the third Premier League team to beat Newcastle under Eddie Howe at St James's Park. So, to be fair, as much as you could pick out Newcastle's performance, as Graham just said there, you've got to give Arsenal credit for going up there and putting on that type of performance. When really, if they'd have come away with anything other than if they'd have got a draw, or got beat, the title would have been done.
Yeah,
they have kept it alive.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think Newcastle on this weird bit of form where they started to score a lot more than one or two goals in their game, but they're not keeping clean sheets anymore. And I think that's starting to catch up with them. Graham's 100% right. That felt very much Arsenal were like, I wouldn't say men against boys, but it was like a different step of class that they presented. And what Arsenal did really well is they played Newcastle to their own game. See this game management that Newcastle have been, a bit shithousery with all season. Killing attacks by having the dead ball, taking ages to take a corner kick or a throw in. Arsenal did exactly that to them, and I don't think Newcastle liked it. Every time Newcastle had any kind of momentum, the Arsenal players were kind of sitting on the floor a bit longer. Xhaka was doing it as well. For some reason, he seemed absolutely rattled, didn't he? Like he was desperate to have a fight with somebody on Sunday.
It was a feisty, it was a proper fight.
You go back against the Liverpool game and you just think, surely he's learned not to do that, like, because they were winning at the time, and you just think, oh, is this going to be a bit of egg in his face again? But they seen it through, and I think the big difference was Jorginho. Jorginho was brilliant at the weekend, and hats off to Odegaard, because I don't think anybody would have put him down for having 15 league goals this season, and that first goal was tremendous. Really, 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 really good performance from him. But Newcastle are just kind of, I think they know they're in the top four now for the end of the season. They're just kind of footering the way through. I don't anticipate them getting caught by anybody to take them out of those top four spots. They just probably need the season to finish now, is probably the best thing to say.
It's amazing when you speak about Odegaard. He's finally, I mean, this season he's shown that player why Real Madrid bought him. I mean, I think he walks into any midfield in the world just now, pure and simple. I think the guy is absolutely sensational. And it's good to see, because obviously when Real Madrid signed him, he was so young.
Yeah, he was 16, wasn't he?
Yeah, and it can go a couple of ways, but he's really fought his career. He's went on loan a few times, and obviously he's back to Arsenal and captain and looking absolutely unbelievable. Everything has to go through him. Everything, and he is that good.
Yeah, the one thing I was very impressed with him about, because, as you're right, there was a lot of talk about him coming to Liverpool when he was hosting who he was going to, and obviously he chose to go to Madrid, which was fine, but he dropped down. He didn't walk into the Madrid team. He went into the Madrid under-21 team and played for their juniors, and then he went out on loan and did a couple of seasons. But when he did that loan at Arsenal, it was always a bit of a, let's see how he gets on, and he played pretty okay. But then they signed him and made him captain. That was impressive for me. Like, that was a big call, because obviously, remember, they took the captaincy off Xhaka because of he had the fallout with the fans and stuff, and he gave it to Odegaard. And to me, Odegaard's 10 times the player he is now than what he was at this time last season. I think he's just come on leaps and bounds this season. I think he's been brilliant.
Yeah, confidence in games.
Yeah,
that's it. And he's still, Arsenal fans, obviously, I think a lot of them will be really disappointed, obviously, if they come away not winning the league this season, considering. But if you actually look at their squad and look at how young they are,
Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard, it's frightening. It really is.
If they recruit well, again, they I think it's a really, that's the big one, isn't it? Because they've recruited so well, and as you said, the age is there, and what they've got to keep that together. But just to add one or two quality players, they've had some criticism, I think, for their January signings, but I thought they was at the time,
I think one of the differences is that Saliba started the season brilliant, and he was arguably on course to being one of the best defenders in the league. Then he got his injury, and then they had Rob Holding. And Rob Holding, unfortunately, just, he's been there for donkey's years. It's probably those kind of players that they need to shift on and bring in better quality. I noticed he dropped Holding at the weekend, didn't he? He played the Polish lad Kowori, who again's like 21 years old. He's played the last 2 games. So again, looks another astute purchase that they've got. I don't. So the difference is, see when a team like this play really good. So you look at Brighton, for example. Brighton are going to struggle to keep hold of those players going into the next season. I don't think Arsenal have that problem. Arsenal are a big enough club, and there's talk that Saka's about to sign his new deal. Martinelli's already signed his. Odegaard's just been made captain and just signed. So the core of their team, I think is going to be really good. The goalkeeper as well has probably been arguably one of the best keepers in the league, and he's a good young age as well.
I'll bang on about this. Honestly, for the rest of the season, the signings Arsenal made in January, well, not the signings Arsenal.
You've triggered him, Mason. You triggered him.
January is such a hard month, though, isn't it?
No, I get that, but look, last 2 games aside, Janino starts both, right? If you look at the run of games before them, Jorginho and Trossard. We're not in the starting 11 for a large string of games. I'd need to look and go back and all that, but they weren't. Now, if you've signed a real difference-making player to your team in January, that could be the difference that had pushed them over the line.
Yeah.
Like no doubt about it.
Do you think Rice would be that?
Sorry?
Do you think Declan Rice would be that? Because obviously there's a lot of talk right now about Declan Rice going to Arsenal. I just don't see Arsenal paying 120 million for him. That sounds absolutely mental.
That's never happened in January though, and nor
No,
to say
no.
That's the problem. Like, I totally get what you're saying, Graham, but they're not getting them game changers in January. Mudryk wouldn't have changed. Mudryk wouldn't have won on the league, by the way, if that would have gone through. And that was their main target.
Mhm.
Like,
Okay,
you're not getting them game changers. Like,
Maybe.
they're not a club that goes and spends 120 million.
We don't know how Mudryk would have been at Arsenal. Chelsea's been an absolute embarrassment for the last 6 months. It seems like the morale within the place, players not being able to change in the dressing room and all that. There's no way that doesn't affect somebody like Mudryk. I absolutely totally believe if Mudryk goes to Arsenal, that's just a different kind of level of player that could help Arsenal push the title. Those are the points that might matter at the end of the season. In terms of the players that you can buy in January, look at the players Chelsea bought. Just because they're doing terribly doesn't mean the players they bought aren't
It's the
great
cost,
players.
Isn't it?
No, I know, I get that.
115 million on Enzo Fernandez, and it inflates the market for a central midfield. Do you know what I mean? Next minute, David Moyes is saying he's obviously talking up, saying Declan Rice is the best English midfielder. Any Champions League team's going to be looking at 120 million. You're like, he's got about 18 months left in his contract. You know, is that really?
You just need to look at the history of the English market. Premier League to Premier League is horrendously overrated. It always has been, and it always will be. Harry Maguire to what Declan Rice might go to, it's ludicrous. When you look at Rio Ferdinand back in the day going for 30 million, smashing it, I mean, that's probably when it really started going wild in the Premier League, let's face it. So, look, that number, is Declan Rice worth it? No. But is he worth it if a team's willing to pay it? Yes, I guess, if Arsenal think that's a player that's going to push them towards a title next season.
Do you think that's the kind of player that they need? I mean, obviously you're talking about the take January transfers away. They're obviously going to go again in the summer, and we're talking about they've got a young team and they need to fill a few holes.
Yeah,
is it that kind of a player that they need?
I think that kind of defensive midfielder. I also think a big bastard centre back would be good for Arsenal as well. Like I do think a couple of defensive players, maybe midfield and in defence, because the starting front three, I think, are definitely good enough, shown by form this season, really, to win the league. I think what's let Arsenal down is some sloppy goals, and when your Zinchenko's aren't playing well, etc. I think that's what has let Arsenal down. So yeah, maybe a Declan Rice, who knows? But 120 million, that is the thing. That's what you're saying. You're right. Yeah, and that's where I don't see Arsenal, but paying that, I just don't see that.
120 million for a midfielder that he's a good player, but he don't score 10 goals a season. He doesn't assist 10 goals a season. So it's ridiculous money.
Well, think of it this way: what did they pay for Odegaard? 35,
40, is it? 35.
He's got 15 goals a season, so you're not paying 120 for Declan Rice, are you?
That's it. But as Graham said, English.
Yeah, so it comes with the tax.
Yeah, it's nuts. But we will touch on Declan Rice again a little bit later on. But Graham, coming back to you then. Next one, Man City, big win for them, 2-1 win against Leeds. Sam Allardyce going in there. Obviously, his post-match press conference was a bit strange, saying that he was up there. What was it? Better than Pep?
He was up there with Pep and Klopp.
Jesus,
he taught football more than they did, or something.
Yeah. I think he said he was better. Like he was better than them. He'd just never been given an elite Premier League team to kind of prove that with trophies, etc. Like what he said was embarrassing, ludicrous.
And I
don't really see. It's not like he's at it there. He's playing mind games. I don't see what merit that is at all. I think he's made himself look a bit like an arse. Yeah, look, Leeds ran Man City close. Obviously, not really. If you look at the game itself, stats, etc. But I think that it was a lot tighter than people might have expected it to be. I think it would have made for a good story had Sam Allardyce's first game away to Man City ended up in a point. But it didn't. Man City won, and again, we're talking about they've been on this ludicrous form, a great run, but scoring an absolute ton of goals. But, against a kind of sticky opposition in Leeds who've got Sam Allardyce coming in battling relegation, they've they've got through that with a 2-1 victory, and again, those are the victories that win you titles.
Yeah, Jamie, just on that, I think Graham summed it up well there. But I watched it was a bit of a strange one, obviously because of the coronation Saturday. It was on Sky at 3:00,
Mhm.
so watched it. I thought they were so good first half. You're watching it again, this could be any score. But the last few games I've watched Man City, I'm seeing a little bit of complacency kick in, and I know Pep absolutely went mental.
Berserk, didn't it?
Yeah, which you would, because all it took was a set piece or a mistake and leads a level, and then everything gets thrown up with the title. I am seeing a little bit of complacency. I think again, letting Gundogan take the penalty for the hat trick when you've got a player that scored the amount of goals that Haaland.
Do you know what that is though? That's just I do believe that's purely Haaland's naivety. He's so young. Like a lot of the reports that you hear when they did it before the Champions League game tonight, and Rodri was talking, and he's like, it's you have to pinch yourself to remember actually how young he actually is, but he embodies the team. He gets involved. He loves having a laugh. He always makes sure everybody's doing okay, and he says you don't get that really from 21-year-olds in these days of life. I do believe that Haaland was just going, Gundy, go get your hat trick, mate. Do you know what I mean? I've got my record. Go get your hat trick. 5 years from now, he'll 100% be ruthless and go, give me the fucking ball. Nobody's taking it off. But you get what I mean? Like you can't see you wouldn't. Harry Kane wouldn't have given that ball up. Do you know what I mean? Like it, and I just believe that Haaland was just trying to be the team player, was trying to do the right thing. If he would have put that in the net, everybody would have went, "Oh, Haaland's the fucking, he does it for the team," because he just, it would have been a good story to tell. There's talks Gundogan's going to be leaving soon, so to kind of finish off, he's never got a hat trick before. I can totally understand why he did it. But yeah, the ruthlessness of Pep, he was not happy with that after, and you can see that. And you can even see him clear as day shouting down the camera, next time you fucking take it, you were meant to take it. And as you said, it ignited Leeds a little bit. I did think it was an absolute crazy decision to change the goalkeeper. Like, of all the people he could have changed, he changed the goalkeeper. And when those 2 goals went in, you thought, well, he's had an absolute mare here. This could be 6 or 7s. But City just took the foot off the gas. They just, as you said, I wouldn't call it complacent. They just eased off a little bit. And the penalty save just ignited it, really. They're kind of lucky to hold on at the end. I think they did it also against, was it Leicester a few weeks ago? Where Iheanacho could have got 2 in the last 92 and 93 minutes or something. But as Graham says, this is the business end of the season. City still get it done. They know how to do it, and this is why they are as immense as they are.
I'm going to be really interested to see that game at Goodison. Their next league game, obviously.
But that's the thing. See, after last night, you're like, that's not an easy 3 points now.
And sorry, Mason, I'm probably forcing your hand moving on to Everton, unless we've discussed them already before I came on. But
First on the list tonight.
Great. So obviously we've discussed them already, but I think Man City going there after a great result last night, it's going to be interesting. Look, Goodison's not an easy place to go, and I think that is a really big test. I think it's probably safe to say if Man City can get through that kind of game, what's sandwiched in between their games with Real Madrid, it's probably looking good. Let's face it.
Yeah, that you're actually spot on. That one next week is one that make or break the title. That, but it'll be interesting to see. But Jamie, I'll come back to you. We'll go to the next one. Declan Rice is on the list, and it's his team that beat Man United 1-0. Man United, the last 2 games I've watched them. I'll start with them, Jamie. I know you love them, but they're bang average for me. They are bang average. I think that's 8 defeats in the Premier League for Man United.
Oh, no, Mason. I brought you a stat, mate. I know you're going to love this. Love this.
8 Premier League away defeats. Is that right?
Hang on. So, Man United, under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the worst season he ever had was 8 Premier League losses. Erik ten Hag, who's the saviour of Man U, has now got his 9th Premier League loss this season. So he's actually eclipsed the form of what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did in his last 2 seasons.
I'm going to make you. I don't know how, but I'm going to make you a stat jingle for this podcast.
Like I hit a button and
Yeah.
it just kicks in a jingle.
Yeah, absolutely. You're gonna, yeah. It's a good start, but then
Yeah.
he's, inconsistency's been Man U's issue, but then they might still win 2 trophies this year, so
That is
and
very
finish
true.
top 4. So
I think the key thing is that they've, if I was to give them any kind of get out of jail card, they've still got this inconsistency at the back in the defense line. So, like, Martinez is obviously out for the remainder of the season. They're playing Luke Shaw at central left back and this boy Malacia at left back. Now, God love him, I certainly am not going to sing his praises, but you've got 2 registered centre backs sitting on the bench in Harry Maguire and Varane or Lindelof, whoever's not playing. I don't get how he keeps persisting with this formation that obviously isn't working. Casemiro being back, I think, is a big thing for them, but also so's Eriksen, and they've kind of shored up that midfield. But there's just something at the moment that reminds me of Bruno Fernandes is playing like. Do you remember how Ronaldo was in his last season, where he's like, every time I want the ball, give me the ball. And if it doesn't go through me, I'm not being part of it. I kind of see those traits in Fernandes right now. Like, I know he's the captain, but it's like if he's not had a good game, the team don't have a good game. And I think that's kind of been a little bit infectious across the team. They've obviously got the inconsistency with the fact that they don't have a number 9 proper, a decent number 9. Wout Weghorst they said he'd come in and do a job. I'm not really sure what that job is now. His first couple of games was about heading the ball and getting them onto the second ball. I don't think he does that anymore. So yeah, Rashford was always going to burn out, and we always said, Rashford burning out was always going to be the hindrance of how they go forward. And the fact he's dried up in his goals means that they are starting to drop points. However, you can't not skim over that and then not talk about the fact that David De Gea had an absolute howler. That. I mean, you could put in a 16-year-old and he'd know how to save that. It wasn't even close as a overly strong shot. It was just the way he palmed it. So that's obviously a big negative for him. The problem is that they have Jack Butland as their second option, so it's not like they have a ready-made one that can come in and do them a job. So they're not going to drop De Gea, but he's always got a mistake in him.
He must cost them 7 out of them 9 defeats, Barry. Jamie,
I would say he's not as costly as somebody like Lloris at Tottenham, who can, probably lets in he probably throws about 12 goals in. David De Gea just has a mare every now and again. The one thing that was a bit concerning, though, I seen it again today actually on Twitter. There was a few video clips of his passing out, like simple 20-yard balls that were going nowhere near the defenders and were actually going more towards the West Ham players. And you just think, I mean, that's obviously an instruction he's been given, but it's got to go to the player. It can't go to the space, surely. Space is for you to run into, not for your defender to take a charge and run out of.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens with De Gea as well, because the wages he's on there. I don't see him anyone really in a rush to come and get him, but I do think that is an area that if Man United want to, compete for league title, they're going to need to. He's been there way too long. But Graham, we've got to obviously touch on West Ham. It's a big win for them. I thought they were the better side. I don't know, Man United earlier on had a couple of half chances, but I thought Declan Rice, I know we just touched on him there, but I do think he had another really, really good game, and that's West Ham's sake surely now on 37 points.
Yeah, I would say that's probably right. I think it was Cara on Sky Sports was saying he reckons 35 will probably keep you safe this season. Looking at some of the run-ins, I actually think it might be lower than that. So yeah, West Ham are safe. Big boost for them going into their big European tie coming up. And yeah, probably a good end of the season for them. And we've spoken about it before. If they can get that European trophy and walk into the Europa League next season as well, then listen, their fans will be absolutely delighted. But yes, they'll need to do better in the Premier League next season. or it probably will be curtains for Moyes. I think he's been given this season just from last season's European performances, this season's as well, and maybe his stature, but yeah, it'll need to improve next season for them.
It is mad to think that he could, obviously, they've had a poor season in the Premier League, but they could win a European trophy, get pot one of Europa League, and there's 90% of the support still want Moyes at the door. It's bonkers.
I was listening to, I think it was TalkSport on Monday, and they were actually asking that question after, because they were talking about obviously the game, and a lot of callers actually called up and they were saying bring in Michael Carrick because he plays attacking football, and I feel it's absolutely crazy that he's had a really good season with Middlesbrough, his first job. He's obviously got the top goal scorer in Akpom, but taking that to West Ham's a whole different ball game. Like, you don't. I just seen that. I think that would be crazy, but I don't think, unless Moyes wins that trophy, I don't think he's there next season, because I think fan pressure. I think they'll call for a new head. However, if he wins the tournament, then they'll go, we'll give him to the start of the season and we'll see how he gets on, kind of thing. That's the shame, because Moyes will just be on borrowed time every time.
Yeah.
Big shout out to the boy Paqueta. I think he's been brilliant for him this season. I think they'll do well to keep hold of him. They paid relatively cheap for him. I think it was about 30 million. You could easily see somebody paying, double that for somebody like him.
I was actually quite surprised that no one else went for him. Obviously, from a Rangers point of view, seeing him when he played for Lyon, I was actually really surprised that the West Ham managed
that was his choice.
No, not even that. Just more about that there wasn't any more clubs sniffing about him. I don't know if there was. I thought it just seemed like West Ham, and he went there Premier League. I genuinely thought there might have been quite a few clubs sniffing about him, but there you go. You're right. He's quality, and they might make a lot of money off him, like they will Declan Rice.
Do you know what though with Paqueta? I've got to be honest. I think it took him till February to really get grips of the Premier League. I think
he had an injury as well, though, didn't he, over Christmas?
Yeah.
I think he come back from the World Cup a bit injured, didn't he?
He shows glimpses of what he's got, but I'll be honest. I'm looking at it. I can't see him getting into, Arsenal, City. I think Liverpool, when they recruit, them forwards. I think he's good. I think he's a good player, but unless he goes abroad, I think he'll be at
I think he would go abroad, and I think somebody would pay. You could see him at a Champions League team. That's probably the best way to say it. At a Champions League team, they could probably get double what they paid for him, and he would probably fit into most European squads, if you like. He does have that. As you said, he shows a glimpse of a bit of a Brazilian flair every now and again, and he turns out for the Brazilian national team every time they call up the squad. He's always one of the first names in there. So yeah, I'm a big fan of him. I really like him.
Yeah, no, nice one. And Graham, come back to you then. Fulham beat Leicester 5-3. That was a result I don't think any of us could have predicted with the 8 goals. Fulham getting their 14th Premier League win of the season, but I've got to say, Leicester's defending. I think listening to Dean Smith, he was happy he could get his 2 centre halves in with Fayers and Sonoku. Is that it? Sonoku. And they both had an absolute mare. And every time Fulham went forward, it could have been, they look like they're going to score. I think Leicester. I think it's fair to say that it's looking like they're going to go down.
It does. I can't believe that, to be honest. I really thought that they would survive, but when you look at 2 out of the last 3 games, it does not look good for them. You also look at the relegation rivals. Forest get a win, Everton score 5 when Leicester are conceding 5. Goal difference is pretty tight down there, especially when you look at it between Everton, Leicester and Leeds. So, I mean, Leicester really, for one, you cannot be conceding 5 goals when you're trying to avoid relegation. Those next 2 games are not looking good for them. I think for Leicester, if it does come to that, it might just come to the last game of the season for them. So it's squeaky bum time, to be perfectly honest.
I've seen yesterday as well. Sorry, Mason. I've seen yesterday as well. One kind of Leicester. I've got 7 players out of contract at the end of the season. That's far too many for a Premier League team. Now, if you go down, that might be a good thing, but the drop in quality, you look at the people that they brought in this year. They brought 2 central defenders in the boy Suter and Wout Faye. They've been absolutely abysmal. Like yesterday's defending was just non-existent at all. That is super worrying, I think.
Yeah, no, it's spot on. It's 21 losses for Leicester in the Premier League this season, and that's their most.
That's mental. That's the Premier League champions from 6 years ago, and that's absolutely nuts. That is.
And it's their most since 1994-95, where they were relegated that season as well. So writing's on the wall for them, Jamie. But you've got to say again, credit Fulham. Everything that's been good about Fulham going forward, they look dangerous, and even Tom Kearney got
forgotten man. But you look at the last couple of weeks. The last couple of weeks, Harry Wilson stepped up to the plate. Tom Kearney stepped up to the plate. If you go back to, when just before Mitrovic got his ban, they were getting goals from Willian. The boy Solomon was coming on and getting them. Like, none of these players are going at the moment. Only Williams probably the only one that survived. They're getting goals from all over the place, which is really good to see. I think Mitrovic's ban's up this weekend. I think he's going to have a challenge of whether or not to put him back in the squad, because arguably Carlos Vinicius is, he's done well. Don't get me wrong. I think Vinicius, I think Mitrovic does go back into the squad, but it's just one of them ones that they haven't missed him, in my opinion. I think they've done really well without him, and yeah, they were just a different level compared to Leicester yesterday. They've also got the lad back at right back. Is it Tete? He came back yesterday as well, and he grabbed himself an assist. It was like they were all queuing up yesterday to get a goal. The one weird one that I've been trying to work out is why, after starting the season with Ashley Ward, did they drop him for the boy Everson? I think Everson's played the last 7 games and he's only kept 1 clean sheet. So it tells you there's something's either been a disconnect that's happened there, or they've got a new manager in, but even the new manager's still not playing Ward. So there's obviously something going on in the background there.
Yeah, I don't know. That was a strange one at the start of the season. That's when I think everyone could see what was going on with Leicester, is letting Schmeichel go, who's obviously been brilliant for him and probably one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League over the last few years, and then not replaced.
Yeah, I think he had a big fallout though, didn't he? And it wasn't with, I think it was him and Rodgers.
And I think, to be honest, Ward's not, in my opinion, Ward's not good enough. He's not a Premier League goalkeeper. So Smith's came in, knows that, and has maybe just tried to change it up and change the goalkeeper. And that's
but Everson was changed before Smith came in. That's what I mean. So Smith's played, the last 2 or 3 games or something, and I think Everson's played like the last 7, maybe 8 games. So I think there's obviously something that's happened pre then. Normally when a new manager comes in, he goes, right, forget what's happened, clear the decks, let's everybody get back to it. But for whatever reason, Ward's not back in. But I do believe Ward's a better keeper than Everson. He does 10 goals for his national team, but there just seems to be something going on in the background there.
I think just the case he's not good enough. It's not as if he was setting the one.
No, of course not.
So I think when you're on a downturn, okay, it was under Rodgers, but you need to start somewhere. You need to make changes, and he's maybe thought, look, I'll change the keeper. Is what it is. Yeah, look, they need to strengthen that department. If they manage to stay in the Premier League, as Mason says, you lose Kasper Schmeichel and you don't replace him. You're like one of the leaders of the team, been there for years, won the league, the FA Cup, etc., and they don't replace him. It was a weird one, but they maybe are the victims of their own downfall, because they just didn't spend whatever those reasons were. I don't know offhand, but they didn't spend.
They had the financial fair play process issues at the beginning of the season. They were reporting losses of nearly 100 million. They were going to get hit with a financial fair play issue. So as a way to balance it out, they sold Fofana to Chelsea. However, the talk was they were still going to have these challenges coming the end of the season, and the talk was that Maddison was going to be the makeshift at the end of the season to kind of balance the books again. But I think back at Christmas, Mason, I think it was, the Leicester owners come in and cleared all the debts, so he's kind of reset it. So if anything, it's got a bit of a good solid platform to build from right now.
Yeah.
Problem is if they're not in the Premier League, it's a different platform to be working from, isn't it?
That's another one. And just on Leicester, a player that we said there, that Maddison will definitely go. I think even if they stay in the Premier League. One player that I would be looking at if I was probably just outside that top 4 is Harvey Barnes. I think he's in a very good team. I think he'd do really well. He gets in them positions and he's deadly.
I like him. I like him. I think he's very much a one-trick pony. But if you look at the top 6 teams, I don't think he gets in their squads or that he doesn't get onto their pitch. So who you're looking at? You're looking at a Villa or a Newcastle or somebody or a West Ham. I think it's that kind of a level he's probably got to go to. But he's arguably one of the more positive players that they have, definitely.
But I mean, yeah, you're probably right. He probably doesn't get in a Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool. No. But for the money you'd be able to get him for in if they do go down now, especially him being English, I think that it'd be one that which maybe Spurs, their options they've got. I think it'll be
see your Burnleys coming up, those kind of teams. I think it'll be those ones that are probably looking at him. Your Burnleys or your Sheffield Uniteds. I think it'll be those kind of teams that'll be looking at, as you said, he'll be the more cheaper version than a James Maddison or other pacey wingers. You could probably pick him up for just shy of 20 million. Let's just say, because he's probably not on big wages at Leicester either.
No. That'll be interesting to see what if they do go down, how they recover from that. But Graham, next one, Bournemouth look like they was on their holidays on the weekend, and Chelsea are safe, and they got 3 points at last. They ended a run of 7 Premier League games without a win. But to be fair, Bournemouth did have a couple of chances at 1-1 where it could have gone either way. So it wasn't like it was a comfortable afternoon for Chelsea, but actually a big win, all things considered.
No, it was never going to be a comfortable afternoon for Chelsea. I think Lampard was probably relieved more than anything, one, to secure their place in the Premier League next season. And in all seriousness, though, I mean, we spoke about it. They could have quite conceivably win the rest of the season without winning. I mean, I would have thought that would be probably one of the worst reigns in the history of the Premier League for a manager. Honestly, let's face it, his record from Everton going into Chelsea is appalling. So look, I think he needed that win. Chelsea needed that win. On the face of it, they've got nothing to play for now. They're not going to achieve anything. But I mean, they had to pick up wins somewhere. So as you say, it could have went another way quite easily. It didn't. 3-1, quite comfortable, and Bournemouth are safe now anyway, as well. And I think fair play to them. Absolutely fair play to them.
Yeah, not too much to sort of cover on that. Bournemouth have done the hard work already, and they're safe, and it is So Jamie, I won't sort of get you to go over that one. Another nothing game really was Spurs beating Palace 1-0. Harry Kane with the winner. I watched a bit of that, and it was very much like an end of season game. That
it was, wasn't
it? Not a lot happened. But what did you make of that one?
Yeah, exactly as you said. It was a bit of a it's for Tottenham. It was about stopping that free fall, wasn't it? They had the hand on the they had one hand on the top 4 running, if you like. They're now out of that, and it's about where they finish up. So they're obviously trying to play for something. You would anticipate they would have won at the weekend purely on the basis of they're at home. However, I think the most telling thing was that Ryan Mason dropped Eric Dyer, which I thought was a big call, because they have looked massively erratic at the back in this season. Don't necessarily think it's Dyer's fault, but he obviously made a decision and he came out on top. No surprise, it was obviously Harry Kane that scored the goal, but I was actually more surprised that Palace didn't score because they had their opportunities as well. Considering how many goals they have scored in recent games, to register not a goal was probably more of the shock. But yeah, Tottenham 3 points was probably one of the ones that you call as it before the games as a prediction.
Yeah, no, you're spot on.
I think obviously the most important thing as well is Palace are mathematically safe, and that's the biggest thing for them. So you've got Super Roy Hodgson. He's came in, he's done his job. He can go back, light his fag, and walk into the sunset, man. Enjoy it.
Walk into the sunset. That's another round of applause.
Enjoy it.
Retirement in 3 years or something.
Enjoy it like the hero he is, man. What a guy! What a guy!
It's funny you say that, Graham, because Palace historically won in the Premier League when they are safe. that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
They just take the foot right off the gas. They go on their holidays, and they won't win again. And it's something that, funny enough, was speaking to my uncle, who's a big Palace fan, and he said, "We're safe now. We probably won't pick another point." And it looked like that, as you said. When's the last time Spurs kept a clean sheet?
Yeah, exactly. So, well, Mason, I was going to ask you, Mason, what's the talk like about? Because obviously the Palace fans are going to be loving Roy, but they know, from what I hear, Roy's already confirmed he's not going to be there next season. Mm-hmm. So that leaves Palace in a bit of the shitter, in my opinion. What is the talk? Are they sniffing people out? Do they have a preference, or?
Brendan Rodgers seems to be who they want. I think that one, it depends, obviously, what happens elsewhere. We were talking about West Ham earlier, and I think that they're I think Rodgers would be a good fit for West Ham, but I think West Ham fans have got this mindset where they should be looking higher. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, they think that we should be going there, and I think, but Palace, I think Rodgers seems to be the one. The only thing is when Steve Parish has come away from that safe, and he's tried to be a little bit different. It hasn't paid off. You go back to Frank de Boer, and that was one where it was a little bit different. But I think Rodgers is different. I think Rodgers would be a good appointment. The only thing is Parish is quite strong in the way that he runs the football club, and Brendan Rodgers is he's got his own way.
He wants to be more hands-on, doesn't he?
Yeah. So that might be it. But Rodgers seems to be the one the fans want. But yeah, it'll be interesting because
Postecoglou's the one I've been hearing. Postecoglou's obviously, even from West Ham, from a West Ham point of view, his name doesn't go away. He's obviously got a bit of success outside the Premier League, and it's whether or not he can come down and do that in the English Premier League.
I hope so. Genuinely, I do, and I hate admitting it, but I genuinely hope so.
Mm-hmm. That thing about him, though, you'd really need a pre-season. He's not. I don't think he's the kind of manager who you get midway through or something.
Yeah, comes in February. Yeah, it's a project manager.
It did take a wee bit of time to implement his ideas at Celtic. I remember they lost their first 3 away games and stuff in the league, etc. And obviously, yes, they're now flying, so it wouldn't surprise me. But I think they would need to get him in
sharpish
pre-season. Yeah.
Well, I think Parish is, no matter which way they look at it, Parish knows. And everybody knows they're going to be bringing somebody in, so he can't afford to wait until the season kicks off before he kind of brings somebody in. He's got to bring somebody in mega early, in my opinion.
Do you think, though, both of you, I'll ask you this, but just on Postecoglou, if a team, like Palace come in for him, do you think what's happened with Gerrard and then because obviously living down here, I get a lot of people comparing Postecoglou and saying, well, Gerrard done, went unbeaten. He come down here and he couldn't cut it. Probably arguable they are a bigger club than Crystal Palace, but would you think that would have second thoughts for clubs, or do you think they'll just go totally different manager, different style? It will be different.
Yeah, I don't think it would give clubs any second thoughts. I think they will have their own due process. They'll look at a manager on his own merits. The style of football they play. I think, Gerrard didn't work, and I'm not convinced the reasons he went down there were purely for football. Anyway, I think he said there was family reasons involved. If Postecoglou were to leave Celtic, then again, that it's all dependent on his own reasons, what he wants to achieve, how much things he's achieved in Scotland, Champions League, because obviously if he walks away from Celtic, he's walking away from European football. If he's going to Palace, for example, certainly for a while. Anyway, I don't know if that's something they've ever achieved. Maybe once. I don't know. No, they've not. So, look, it just depends. I think from a club point of view, looking at a manager, I'd be surprised if they weren't looking at it in their own merit.
Yeah,
me and Graham. I remember when the Gerrard talks come up about me and Villa. Me and Graham were very different on our rationale and why he should or why he shouldn't. And what I think you can't compare Postecoglou and Gerrard in terms of their phase. Gerrard was never in a position, in my opinion, to knock back a Premier League team just based on what he's done in the Premier League and this path, this imaginary path people have put him on to get to Liverpool as a manager. Postecoglou doesn't have that. He's kind of come out of nowhere, and he's kind of built his project, if you like, in Celtic. And I think the moment that project doesn't start going his way, he then probably starts thinking about, well, what's on the other, is grass green on the other side. Gerrard, whether people like it or not, Gerrard was always going to go back to the Premier League. Postecoglou comes without those ties, so I think it's always going to be based on what he wants in terms of that. If Postecoglou sees opportunity and improvement, do you know what I mean? Like he's went to Celtic and he's done some really good business, in my opinion, on transfers. Go to Palace, mate. You're spending what you've just spent on those bottom 4 players. You're spending that on a player. Realistically, that comes with a whole different level of kind of engagement. So I think Postecoglou would, if he was to go, would be on the basis of whether he thinks it's the right fit for him, and whether it's the right time, because he's obviously got this, as Graham said, he's got this project that's going with Celtic at the moment that is not pretty bad at the moment.
It's also interesting as well, just like this aside, but when a manager goes from Scotland to England, you always expect them to maybe come back and sign some players, and try to think really realistically, the last player that went from Scotland down to the Premier League that really
I don't think it. The last time I remember it, I don't think it was a Premier League. I think it was a Championship, and I think it was Strachan when he went to Middlesbrough. Did he not take Robson?
No, but I just mean a player that's done really well in the Premier League.
Oh yeah, no.
I'd say John McGinn.
But then I guess he went to the Championship first.
Yeah, he went to the Championship.
Yeah.
So
Edouard, I mean, Palace fans are not don't praise Edouard at all. They look like the favourites to go and get Kyogo, like you're saying. Anyone that leaves Scotland to go in the Premier League it is the one that's getting linked. But yeah, I actually was having that argument with someone the other day, Graham, about that, because in the last few years there hasn't really been many that you can say, that have gone. I mean, we, as apart obviously from the obvious ones, Van Dijk and Robertson, but
I was always surprised Gerrard didn't come back for a couple of players at Rangers. Yeah. Rather, he went the way of spending mega money on guys like Luca Dean and Coutinho, which I think was actually one of his biggest mistakes, rather than potentially coming in for. I really like, for example, Calvin Bassey, and the money, 20 million for Calvin Bassey with add-ons, rather than going. He's a young player, rather than going for a 30-year-old Luca Dean who's quite injury prone. I just think those were some of the issues. So yeah, what Jamie's saying's right in terms of one player for 4, but if you dabble back in the Scottish market, then actually you could get those 3 or 4 players for. Do you know that price?
I think the last time I remember somebody doing a decent job was maybe Naismith when he was at Everton. I think he went pretty cheap, didn't he? And he did.
That's a long time. That's a long time.
Of course it is. Of course it is, but that's what I mean. Like he did well. He was there for a good few years.
Obviously, James McFadden, all that. I meant more recent. Do you know what I mean? I meant more recent. Gary Naismith. That's and flash on the past, Jamie.
Well, it depends what you put as success, isn't it? Because
to be fair, there's a lot of the English teams now loan out the youngsters into Scotland. It works that way as opposed to bringing them down from Scotland. You look at the lad at Aberdeen at the moment, from Liverpool. He's had a really good season, and they've been doing that for years now. James Maddison was at Aberdeen as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, unfortunately, Scotland has come to that as for the Premier League as more of a build the players up, than probably the other way. The only person I can think of is maybe Kieran Tierney, but he's not exactly lit the league on fire. He's more of a T-boy, in my opinion. He probably moves. He does. He just gets the T. He's a shite Robertson. So, but yeah. Sorry, digressing.
To be fair, I hate him, but he's a good player. The problem you got with Tierney is he's always injured.
Yeah.
But listen, it depends what you put success. If you go through the list, you'd probably say that Stephen Davis as well. He's another one that come down there. He was at Cess. He was Southampton captain. If you go through, there's probably more than we give credit for. But going back to the last couple of games, Jamie, I'll obviously come to you on this one. But Liverpool with a 1-0 win against Brentford. That's 6 wins in a row for Liverpool now, and 5 being by 1 goal, which is not something really in the Klopp era. 1 goal wins and nothing.
Do you know what? It's kind of like it's been a bit weird, because if you think about the inconsistencies that we had, we went from scoring 7 against Man U to losing against Bournemouth. That's kind of stopped now, and it's kind of like just get the 3 points. Grind these results out. We beat Fulham last Wednesday 1-0. We got 1-0 against Brentford, and it's like something's kind of clicked at the moment, and a lot's been made of Trent's new position. But I think it's also to do with the pressing from the strikers. Having people like Luis Diaz back, like he's just a different ball game. He plays the Manny way, which is like he leads from the front, he chases the defender down, doesn't give them time. Gakpo started doing that now as well, and Salah's always done it. So it's kind of like there's many things that have just started to click in the right way. Virgil van Dijk's been playing consistently alongside Kanate. It's not been chopping between Gomez and Matip. So, it was for me. It was always about stopping the rot, and the rot was not winning games. Because at one point I think we were down to 8th or 9th, and we were looking like nowhere near this. Now we've got this mega slim hope of actually claiming a spot in the Champions League, which I don't believe we'll do because I think Man U still get more points. But it's mental to think that we actually have a chance compared to, if you look at where we were 10 games ago or something. But Salah's just a gift that keeps on going. I don't care what anybody says. Like, his records are absolutely astounding. That's his 100th goal at Anfield. He's the first person to score 9 goals at Anfield in a row. And as you said, we've now won 6 on the bounce. Everything about Liverpool's just in a more positive manner than what it was 2 months ago. Everybody was talking about whether Klopp was going to keep his job, and that was kind of put to bed. The Bellingham thing, obviously, yes, I would love to say Bellingham is a thing, but that's kind of been put to bed now. It was funny because there was, after the Man United loss, Twitter kind of erupted with all these pictures of Klopp peering out of the back of a kitchen cupboard saying, "So you think there's a chance?" But the one that caught my eye was somebody sending Dortmund a message saying, "Hold that fucking ticket," because we were not getting Bellingham because we weren't qualifying for the Champions League, and now there's this very, very slim chance that we actually might pull something off. But there was a report today that apparently we were ready to match Real Madrid's offer of 380 grand a week in wages. That's what he's actually going for a 19-year-old. That's absolutely mental. So, we've now been sniffing. We've now been linked with other players. I kind of like the look of these other players, McAllister being one of them at Brighton. So it's like everything's all in a positive at the moment with Liverpool. Milner's now confirmed that he's moving to Brighton. Bobby Firmino's away. We're losing about 4 other players. I think it's going to be a busy summer. We need the season to end so we can just get on with it, I think, is probably the best way to put it. But it's good to just put 3 points on the board every week at the moment.
Yeah, it is it? And you never know. The way Man United have been the last 2 games, you just never know. Graham then finishing it off with this week's fixtures. Wolves beating Villa 1-0. I'm sure that's some kind of derby. You might be able to tell me they're both Midlands clubs, but Wolves are unbeaten their last 5 games against Villa. And again, I think we've said it many a time, but Wolves at home have really done really well since Big Jules has gone in there. And Villa back-to-back defeats for the first time since February. So was that one a shock?
I think that's kind of a game looking at it. Really, it could go either way. Yeah, I think Wolves, some sort of Midlands derby or something like that.
Yeah,
Wolves,
there's quite a few that up there, isn't there?
Yeah, Wolverhampton, Birmingham's not that far, is it? 20 minute in a train or whatever. So, I don't think it was a shock, really. Look, yeah, Aston Villa have been a good run of form. It was going to peter out at some point. 2 defeats back to back. Looks like they might struggle to kind of get into their European spot now. I don't actually know how. I'd need to look into it, how an extra place gets given off the cups depending on who wins, and then I don't know if West Ham were to win the conference, for example, if that then takes away from the league, or if it's just an extra team. So there's all these permutations I'm not totally certain about. So yeah, a disappointing result for Villa, definitely, when, unexpectedly they've been charging for Europe and they've now lost two in a row. So disappointing for them, but I think under Emery, what this has shown is, there'll be a challenge next season. There'll be a hard team to beat, and I'm sure Europe will definitely be on the radar for next season if they don't manage it tail end of this.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, and I think they'll recruit. We're just talking about Gerrard there and the way that they recruited under him. I think they'll be a lot more efficient, and I would expect a higher sort of level of player. Probably better ages as well. Emery will go for, but to finish off, I think we want to just quickly talk about the relegation running. I know we spoke about it last week, but it's just that part of the league that's just so. It's probably the only part that's not fully, sealed. So Jamie, just looking at that running again, with the results obviously over the weekend with Forest and Everton picking up wins.
Yeah.
And
I said last week that the bottom three were the ones that were going to go down. Now 2 of those 3 are no longer in the fucking bottom 3, and I'm like, what the hell?
the same.
Like, it's absolutely mental. And I've been pretty, I've given Colin shit for changing these teams every week, and I've been like, no, Everton are going down, they're going down, and then the fuckers pulled out that result last night, and I've got to sit on this pod and go, fuckers are probably safe now. I think what's more alarming is Leicester's inability to do anything at the moment, and it's probably the same for Leeds. I think Leeds have got a couple of tricky ones coming up. I think is it they play. I think they play Newcastle.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Leeds actually get a draw out of that because it's at Ellen Road, and you just think the way they kind of got back into the game the other day, that if they turn up and get at it, I think there's a very slim chance they do something with this and kind of get themselves out of trouble. Leicester are the ones that you fear for, it's. We've been saying all season, if you've got goals, you should be fine. They got absolutely hammered yesterday, and they've got goals. That makes no sense in terms of it's on a thing looking forward. And as you said, you look at some of these games. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody goes down in goal difference. And as Graham said at the beginning, the goal difference is starting to tighten up a little bit, especially after last night's games. So I wouldn't be surprised if somebody goes down on goal difference. But I'm going to go Southampton as the easy pick. I do think Leicester go down now. I do. And I
It's tough.
feel like I don't want to say Leeds because I've just made a case for them, but I feel like Leeds are probably, the only other team that's in free fall at the moment. However, they could turn that around. So I think Leicester are in the shit. And I think next week I'll give you my third team is probably the best answer.
I think I'll join you there.
I can't even say Chelsea no more either. Know what I mean?
I think looking at it, I can't remember when it was. I said maybe a week or two ago. I think my bottom 3 was Southampton, Leeds, and Forest. Now, that result last night for Forest is massive when you look at their run in the last 3 games. Chelsea away, Arsenal and Palace away. Although what Mason's just told us means I'll be betting against Palace every week for the rest of the season. So maybe I'm way off here. I don't think it's inconceivable, right, that Nottingham Forest and Everton go the last 3 games without picking up a point and still stay up.
Still
because
survive.
that's looking at this, like Leicester, man, Liverpool at home, Newcastle away, and West Ham at home is honking.
Yeah.
And realistically, look, Forest goal difference are on 33 points, but they've got minus 31. So look, it's likely that they will have the worst goal difference out of those kind of 4 battling teams, Southampton aside, obviously. So yeah, look, if a team can reach 33 at least, I do think 34 sees you up. I know it's crazy, but I do think that I just don't see Leicester or Leeds picking more than 3 points up the way they've been playing in the last 3 games. So maybe you're right. Maybe Leeds do get a draw at home to Newcastle. Maybe they do nick a point somewhere, but do they get enough to keep them up over those 3 games? That's the thing, and it will be really interesting. Really interesting to see. A bit gutted that none of them play each other. You would be hoping for a real kind of
like a pure hot bondo.
Yeah, that Forest Southampton game was really the last one of the season in terms of head down there, and almost if Southampton had won that, it did bring them. Would have been it would have been tough, absolutely. It would have brought them 5 points with 3 games to go, and look, they're gone now completely. I think we knew that anyway. But look, it'll be an interesting run in. Maybe it's a good thing they're not playing each other. They're all going to be scrapping for points against other teams. But honestly, I don't think it's inconceivable that a lot of them could just finish with 0 points the rest of their games, and it is as it is just now. You know,
it is. It's going to be a really, really good run in, and yeah, I mean, just looking at it there, I think last week I said I think Everton will go down, but that was before they obviously went and thumped Brighton. But I think looking at them 2 fixtures with Wolves and Bournemouth, I just think that maybe a point for them gets out of it. But it is one that's gonna be interesting.
Graham, you said what points did you give? What points did you say? It was 33 points or something you'd get to?
I think where Forest are right now could potentially keep you up.
They would break the record for the team to be staying up with the lowest points.
What is the record?
32. West Brom 2005.
So
you would stay up with that.
Potentially we could see someday.
Yeah.
So what? 31 would break the record. So what we're saying.
Yeah, right. But that's what I mean. Like that's the kind of levels we're talking about. So yeah, I think it'll go down to that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, gents. But last thing to do tonight is thank you both for coming on. So Graham, thanks for coming on to that, mate.
Cheers, mate.
And Jamie, as always, thank you.
Pleasure's always mine, mate. Thank you very much for the invite.
Nice one, lads. Well, again, thanks for everyone for listening. We'll be back next week where I think there's a few more double game weeks. So you'll have to endure us for maybe a little bit longer next week. But as always, thanks for listening.